guys, it's Jasper, and today I'm going to be reading from one of my favorite fairy tale collections, The Turnip Princess and Other Fairy Tales. That's not even correct. The Turnip Princess and Other Newly Discovered Fairy Tales. And the story I'm going to be reading today is called The Howling of the Wind. That's correct. Pairing with today's story, I'm going to be having a nice, tall, smooth, yummy, hot coffee. Ooh. Because, you guessed it, I'm a little sleepy today. Lately I've been a little sleepy every day, because I've been working hard. As always, get yourself something yummy to drink. Relax, enjoy, and cheers. The Howling of the Wind. A woodsman had a son. After he died, the son was out of work, and the boy went out in the world to seek his fortune. He got lost in the woods. All he had left was a crust of bread, which he ate. Overcome by thirst, he looked around for a stream and discovered a footpath. By following it, he reached a well and saw a wondrously beautiful woman drawing water from it. She offered him some water, and he drank it. She asked where he was heading. He replied, "Out into the world to find work." "You can work for me if you want," she said. She was beautiful, and there was no reason not to follow her to the house near the well. The two fell in love before long and celebrated their engagement. But there was one condition placed on their marriage, namely, he must never ask about her on a Thursday. They lived happily together for 14 years, and they had about 7 boys together. The husband started to become curious about his wife's secret. The 14th year had not yet come to an end when he peeked through a keyhole into her room, saw her sitting in a tub, and noticed she had a fishtail. The next day, the woodsman shoved his wife away when she came over to whisper in his ear. He didn't want to live with a dragon. She began weeping bitter tears. If he had been just able to wait 7 years times 2, the curse placed on her by her own mother would have been lifted. Now she was going to have to fly around until Judgment Day. The howling of the wind will be my voice. Swirls of dust will be my food, and I will drink my tears, she lamented. Her husband wanted to prevent her from leaving, but she escaped and began flying around the outside of the house. A boy was seated at each of the 7 windows in the house. She wept as she flew toward them to bid each one farewell. They all began sobbing for their mother and were drawn out the window to her. The fine, melancholy sounds of the wind are their voices. It's a secret mermaid tale. Tale both as a T-A-I-L and T-L-E. So the first thing I want to talk about is something which is a bit silly in the story, and that is the general progression of the story, which is why I love these fairy tales, because they all have a fantastically silly way of progressing. So the first thing is, when the man is lost in the woods and he stumbles across this beautiful woman, the first thing he says after he's been lost and he's finished his last crumb of bread is not, "Please, do you know how to get out of the woods?" or like, "Do you know a way out?" or "Am I close to being out of the woods?" or "Do you have any food?" He's like, "Hey, I'm not lost or without food or anything. I just am meandering the woods because I'm looking for work, you know, to make my fortune in the world." It's pretty cool. Like, I feel like he's kind of putting on some bravado, like, "Why are you in the woods?" And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to find my fortune." But it may have been crucial to then, like, "I can't find my way." And then her response, which is you can work for me, kind of makes me wonder, is that like a line? Does she actually have some employment for him, or is like the employment like, you can be employed as my husband? I don't know. Again, we don't know. Does he find some employment, or are they just like fine living in the woods now that they have each other and they can live on love? And then they fall in love and she's like, cool, of course we can get married. Just promise you'll never visit me or ask for me on a Thursday. And he's like, cool, because you're just like this cool lady I found in the woods. I was lost, but now I found you. And yeah, that's fine, whatever. Not see you on Thursday, I get to see you every other day. That's cool with me. You have a day off, I have a day off. And then, after they've had 7 kids together, 7 sons, okay, in the time where sons are really important and valuable, she has given him 7 sons. It's nearly 14 years, and then is the time that he chooses to be like, I'm kind of curious about what she does on Thursdays. And then this guy, who's gotten lost in the forest, marries the first girl he meets, waits 14 years for curiosity to build up. This guy is the guy who peeks in, sees a mermaid, and cannot recognize her for the majestical creature that she is, and instead is like, a dragon? Gross. And then, what I really like about this story is that he doesn't barge in the room and is like, hey, you're a dragon, no dragons allowed, get out of here. I didn't marry a dragon, I married a lady. Or he doesn't, you know, have her killed or like nothing direct. Instead, what he does is the next day when she comes up to him and tries to give him a kiss, he's like, gross, no, I don't want to live with a dragon. Like, he's gonna just be passive aggressive, which again is like really strange. If you think you're living with a dragon, you think you might be a little bit more, you know, forthright, like just right up there. Now is the time to confront your wife if you think she's a dragon. They are dangerous. Plus all of the hoarding. And then things get real. She's like, you couldn't wait 14 whole years. It was like few days away, and now I am cursed. I was cursed by my mom, and all I had to do was find someone who would wait 14 years, but you couldn't do that. I gave you 7 sons, and you couldn't wait just like a few more days for the curse to be lifted, and now I'm gonna have to whirl around in the wind, drinking my tears and eating the dust, and till Judgment Day comes. And then she whips out of the room and whips around the house, and then her sons are all like, Mom! And then they get sucked out the windows, and then they become the voice you hear in the wind. And this guy is just left in the forest, which he doesn't know how to get out of. He's kind of like back where he started. And that leads me to what I want to talk about next, which is the overall formula of this story, because it is a popular one we see. You have a man who finds this mysteriously beautiful woman who's just like, man, my luck, marries her, and she's like, one condition of our marriage, just don't do this. And he's like, of course not. But then he does it, and there's disastrous effects for the woman. Now, what I think is interesting about this is that in many ways, it is a reverse Bluebeard story, except it's not. It's a reverse Bluebeard story in the way that you have, you know, the person putting the condition on the other it's the woman putting the condition on the man, rather than our Bluebeard figure putting the condition on his new wife. It is a reverse of the Bluebeard story in the way that it is the man's curiosity which causes something terrible to happen, rather than the woman's curiosity. But it is not the reverse in the way that the ramifications still fall on the woman. Now, certainly for this man, it's not the most wonderful thing. He's lost his wife and his 7 sons, which, you know, again, this is in a time when sons are like bags of gold. They're good currency. So he does suffer a loss, but he could go out and marry somebody else and have more sons potentially. The ultimate burden is put on the woman and the children, but the woman who is cursed until Judgment Day to whip around in the wind. I love this story for the humor, and it's also very interesting considering the Bluebeard story and considering the formula that's in this story that again isn't present in a lot of other fairy tales. I would be curious to know what you guys think about this. Comment down below and let's continue the conversation there. As always, guys, I hope whatever you've been drinking has been good, that the reading and conversation has been a fair match. Cheers and cheers. And another thing to take away from this story, a woman's word is like anybody else's. It means something. Cheers. Dear.